afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to come and support Zoe and listen to what I know is going to be a wonderful programme. She has worked so hard on this music, and it was back in October of last year that I said to her, no, that's it. I think perhaps you can do your own senior recital. How do you feel about that? And I said, just think about it. She said, so that's great. So we worked together on various pieces, and I must admit that there are a couple of those were very much our favourites, and I was just hoping that she would choose those. So I did put my little bit of nudging for a couple of them, but it's a very challenging programme, very adventurous, but as I said, she has worked extremely hard, and I'm very proud of her and her accomplishments. This is just like deja vu, really, because back in 2007, I've had it for 11 years, and back in 2007, we had finished our church service, and I was walking out of the choir loft, and I got to hear, and Janet was here with Zoe, who was just 6 3/4 of the time, and we'd already talked about having piano lessons together. And she said, well, Jill, she said, I just want to introduce Zoe to you. And the rest is history. But I was thinking that the other day of the fact that when I was 11 years of age and moving to my further education, there were a lot of us that were sort of excited in one way going to grammar school, and others that were a little bit feeling intimidated. But anyway, the fun thing was at the end of the week, before we actually retired for the summer and then moved on, we all had our autograph books. And so we just wanted to be able to sort of exchange little things with each other, write in the books, and then obviously go to our teachers. And I remember my music teacher, she wrote in my book, music is a thing of beauty and a joy forever. And I hadn't realised at that time, at 11 years of age, what impact that would have on my life. I wasn't sure. All I knew was that I loved music. There were lots of things I loved at that time, but I didn't realise where the Lord would lead me. And I feel very honoured and very privileged to have been able to teach music as well as other subjects in my teaching career, but also having children and students in our home, which has been the greatest privilege and joy of all. And I thank the Lord for that. And as I said to my students over the years, you're only as good as you practice. So there are students that love music, there are students that have a passion for music. And Zoe has been one of those students who has a passion for music, as does her sister. And being homeschooled as well, you have a lot more time to be able to practice. And you'll be able to see that today. So, as for Zoe has played in a lot of venues over the years, and she plays at her church, and has recently playing for the congregation, which is great. Last year, both she and her sister Macy did an AP theory class with me in the spring, or January through April, I think it was. The book was this thick, and it was very complex indeed. The work was very difficult and very challenging, but they both worked very hard at it, and the highest grading that you can get for that AP music theory was a 5, and they both got a 4. So I was absolutely delighted with all of the work and effort that they had put into that. It's amazing. Anyway, I will be just sharing a little bit in between Zoe's pieces to give her just a little bit of a break, and all I'm going to do is to share a little bit about the composers. But I do want to thank Zoe for the joy, as with all of my students, the joy that they bring me every single week as they come in and see their smiling faces coming through the door. It's a beautiful thing, and I thank the Lord for that. The first pieces that Zoe is going to play for us today are Claire de Lune and Noléon's Cake Walk by Claude Debussy. Debussy was born just outside Paris, where his father's china shop. He grew up in humble circumstances, but his wealthy godparents recognised his musical gifts. And at the age of 9, he began piano lessons with Madame Mortet, a disciple of Chopin. A year later, he entered the Paris Conservatoire and began to show promise as a virtuoso pianist. From 15 years of age, Debussy had been composing songs and short instrumental pieces, and in the summer of 1880 was engaged as a pianist and companion by Tchaikovsky's wealthy patroness, Madame von Meyer. In December 1880, he enrolled in the composition class at Ernest Murel at the Conservatory, and such was his progress that 4 years later he won the prestigious Prix de Rome, entitling him to a period of residence in Rome, where he came into contact with great composers such as Liszt and Wagner, and his compositions flourished. Debussy was an impressionistic composer, linking his music with impressionistic painters such as Monet, and the emphasis of such composers was not placed on the subject of the piece of music, but on the emotions or sensations felt by the subject. Nuance, light, colour, mood and atmosphere gain precedence over form and substance. Clair de Lune is the third movement of the fourth movement suite called Suite Bergamesque, which is in fact a clumsy dance, published in 1905. And Clair de Lune means moonlight, as I'm sure you all know, and is based on a poem by Paul Verlaine, which was written in 1869. Many composers took inspiration from poetry, and Debussy was no exception, and this is one of his most well-known piano pieces. So Zoe will play the two back to back. Thank you. The next piece that Zoe's going to play is the Fantasy in D minor by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The Mozart family had their roots in the Bavarian city of Augsburg, where they had a bookbinding business. Mozart was the last of 7 children and had only one surviving sister, Nanette, who by the time he was born was an accomplished harpsichordist. However, her gifts were nothing compared to her brother, who rapidly displayed musical talent. At 4 years of age, Mozart received tuition from his father and was soon playing for violin with the proficiency of one 3 times his age. By the time he was 6, he was composing minuets and other short piano pieces, having excellent structure and balance. This was also the time, at such a young age, when he embarked on his own career as a professional musician. For the next 3 years, his father Leopold toured Europe with his Wunderkinder, his wonderful child, where Wolfgang performed in many prominent places. By the age of 12, he had composed 3 operas, 6 symphonies, and 100 other works. Essentially, Wolfgang saw himself as a composer of opera and as a concert pianist. He wrote 6 of the world's greatest operas and 27 piano concertos, of which at least 10 are masterpieces. The first was written at the age of 11, and the last in the year of his death at 35. Fantasy in D minor was composed in 1782 and left unfinished at his death in 1791. Despite this fact, it's one of Mozart's most popular piano pieces. The last 10 measures of these were probably written by August Miller, who was a fan of Mozart. The ending was first discovered in an unauthorized print in 1806, 15 years after his death, and is the most commonly heard in the performance of this piece. The next piece that Zoe is going to play is the Prelude in C-sharp minor by Sergei Rachmaninoff. Sergei Rachmaninoff was a 19th century romantic composer of Russian descent who came from an old and aristocratic family. His father and grandfather were both officers of the Imperial Guard and highly gifted pianists. Sergei inherited their musical ability. However, although he was outstandingly gifted, he was also outstandingly lazy. At the age of 9, he entered the St. Petersburg Conservatoire, but failed to make progress. He loved music with a passion, but refused to give it the application and dedication that it required. He was later transferred to the Moscow Conservatoire to study piano under the strict tutelage of Tchaikovsky's friend Nikolai Skvorin. Under his direction, Sergei became one of the most brilliant students, winning many accolades. And in 1892, at the age of 19, Rachmaninoff had almost instant fame with his celebrated piano composition, Prelude in C-sharp minor, which, to his increasing irritation, became a signature tune that followed him wherever he went throughout his threefold career as composer, concert pianist, and conductor. In his brilliance as a composer, he wrote powerful concertos, numerous preludes, sonatas for the piano, and many songs. Rachmaninoff was a traditionalist whose music is emotional, always expressing beauty through broad and expressive melodies and rich-sounding, complex harmonies. The most complex part of this piece is that, as you know, a duet is played by two people, four hands. At the end of this piece, he has a duet played by just one set of hands. And so there are an awful lot of notes to be accomplished and to be pressed one hand at a time. So that is the complexity of this piece. pieces that Zoe is going to play. It's by Frédéric Chopin. He was the second of 4 children, born to a Polish father and a French mother, and Chopin was a child prodigy. By the age of 8, his brilliant piano technique captivated Warsaw's audiences. He studied at the Warsaw Conservatoire for Composition, and by 1830, at the age of 20, was already being hailed as Poland's national composer. In 1829, he left Warsaw for Vienna, and then on to Paris, where he became an admirable friend of brilliant romantic composers such as Berlioz, Bellini, and Liszt, the latter of which Chopin later dedicated a set of 12 etudes. He was honoured as a composer. For all this while, Chopin was writing exquisite pieces for the piano, to which audiences responded enthusiastically. From his late teens, Chopin wisely concentrated all his energies and abilities on what he did best, writing for the piano and playing to fashionable audiences. A lot of his compositions contain vigorous folk rhythms of Poland. His preludes, etudes, and ballads proved to lie at the very heart of Chopin's genius. What was particularly liked in his waltzes and nocturnes was their sentiment, tenderness, and aristocracy of style, opening up a new world for piano music. So Zoe is now going to play Chopin's Waltz in E major and the Nocturne in E minor. The next piece, as you can see on your programme, has actually been written, composed by Zoe herself. She's been composing music probably for 4 or 5 years. We started off in very small, 2 or 3 bars at a time, and then we've gradually, obviously, escalated in that. She's done very well. Zoe's been a student that enjoys challenges. It doesn't matter how black a page is with notes. It's a good challenge for her to sit down, and she's a joy to work with. She really is. And I don't think there's ever been, just one piece, I think. One piece, wasn't it, that we didn't really like much. That having fun one, it was called Having Fun. It was not having fun. It was not. It didn't even blend together. The keys were awful. I mean, it was neither selected. But you know what? She still carried on with it, and she said, "I'm going to finish this." So anyway, when people are composing music, they go for either a particular style that they like, a particular key, or they might be playing around on the piano and decide, I like that, what I've just done, I'll embellish that. And I think that's what really Zoe enjoys doing. She'll go to the piano and she'll fiddle around and do different dance rhythms or whatever, and then she'll embellish on something that she really likes. And so this one, she actually composed, and I said, well, have you got a title for it? And she said, no. No, I don't have a title for it. And I said, well, we need to put a title to it. So I think it's about 3 months on, and in fact, I think it was last week. And I said to her, I said, well, if we're going to play this, we need to have a title for it. And she said, yeah, I thought of it. It's Rain at Sunset. And when she played it and she gave me the title of Rain at Sunset, I could actually see in the centre section, particularly, which is quite fast, when the sun set, that refraction you get on the clouds and all of the movement, it's just like that to me. We all read into things differently, but she's done that. I think it's a beautiful piece, and I hope you enjoy it.
So Esther has had a good workout this afternoon, I guess running about 20 miles, I think. Bless her heart. Thank you, Zoe. I have a few thank yous before we move on to our last piece. I'd like to thank First Baptist Church for allowing us to have this concert here this afternoon. I'd like to thank Terry Benge, who's been kind enough to set up for us. I'd like to thank Bonnie and Sharon for the work that they are doing to help set up for the reception afterwards. And I'd like to thank you again for taking the time to come and share with us this afternoon. I'm sure you have been blessed like I have. And I have heard this music many times, but it still brings me joy. She still brings me joy and pleasure in the way that she portrays her music. I thank the Lord for it. So the last piece, a very challenging piece indeed, by Ludwig van Beethoven, Sonata by Fatigue. Beethoven himself was a child prodigy, as you know. Grew up in a very unhappy household in Bonn, Germany. His father was a court musician and unfortunately drank heavily. When Beethoven showed interest in music at a very early age, his father proceeded to try and develop him into a Mozart prodigy. He often dragged him out of bed at night to play for his drunken friends. He found his son, the local piano teacher, Pfeiffer, and kept Beethoven at the piano hour after hour after hour. However, this did not quell Beethoven's desire and passion for music, and was described as another Mozart at the age of 11. He was later provided funds to travel to Vienna in 1787 to play for Mozart, who was convinced of his genius. Following his mother's death, of whom he was very close, he helped support the household by playing in the court orchestra, giving lessons to children of nobility, and playing his piano compositions. Many in Bonn spoke well of his gifts of composition and said that he had a very prominent future. He returned to Vienna in 1792 and continued his studies under Haydn, but they didn't get on, and Beethoven changed tutors. The glowing recommendations which Beethoven had brought from Bonn gained him access to the highest circles of Viennese society. His music flourished. There were 4 cornerstones to Beethoven's achievement: 9 symphonies, the last one of which had voice, 16 string quartets, 32 piano sonatas, and his concertos. The Sonata by Fatigue of 1799 remains one of his best-loved pieces. Sadly, early in 1801, Beethoven realized that he was going deaf. So severe was the problem that as early as 1802, he considered committing suicide. Yet his brilliance as a composer heightened to a degree that no other composer in history ever achieved. One masterwork after another left his pen. Withdrawing more and more from society, he found solace in nature and his music. He kept extending the dimensions of musical structure and produced masterworks until his death in 1827. Such was his greatness that 50,000 people attended his funeral, lining the streets. No composer, not even Bach, played such a historic role in music as Beethoven.
token of my appreciation for all the joy that you have brought.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You've been blessed this afternoon, and I know we've all really enjoyed that. That's a wonderful performance. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. As I said, Janet has provided a little reception for everybody afterwards. It will be great for everybody to get together and have a chat and just have some fellowship time. Thank you again, and thank you.